Tennessee football has yet another commit since last time we spoke. Why Tennessee football recruiting is on the uptick, and who could be next. All that and more. It's your Monday Locked On Vols.
You are Locked On Vols, your daily podcast on the Tennessee Volunteers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, good Monday morning, everybody. Welcome to Locked On Vols. We're a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it is your team every single day, and you know this. It is the Tennessee Volunteers coverage wall-to-wall, weekday mornings, 30 minutes, 31, 32 minutes or less, wherever you get your podcast. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Locked On Vols, YouTube channel. Please subscribe to all those and download these episodes, and that's how we get paid. That's how the show grows, and I can't thank you every day is enough for making it your first listen and your first watch. Your show's coming up tomorrow, by the way. Get in those questions, those comments, those concerns, all that and more for an X Tuesday edition of the show. So get in all your questions. Send them in here, Locked On Vols, @_Caner, @Locked On Vols, and we'll answer those questions on Tuesday's show. Big shout out to our friends over at FanDuel Sportsbook. Make every moment more. Playoffs wind down. Sports are stopping. Sports aren't sporting the way we like, but you can all get some great deals over at FanDuel right now. All customers get a boost and a bonus daily. It's over at FanDuel.com/LockedOn, America's #1 sportsbook. Got a fun show coming up. Another commit. Maryion Dye commits to Tennessee on Friday. We'll give you the lowdown on that. An interesting article from Brent Hubbs, my boss over at VolQuest.com, where he breaks down the top 5 games of the academic year from the Big Three. The Big Three being football, men's basketball, and baseball. We will react to that, and I'll decide if I want to throw in another game to take the place of one of those games that he has mentioned in there for the top 5. And it's kind of a series that, kind of starting a series that I'm going to do over at VolQuest.com. We are, not just me, this week in relation to the 4th of July. So more on that coming up in segment number 2. And then CBS Sports ranked, following the expansion, conference expansion, all 16 SEC football stadiums. Where does Tennessee rank in terms of the SEC 1 through 16? Neyland Stadium. We'll tell you that and more, all that coming up here on a Monday show. Okay, so Maryion Dye. I mean, Tennessee just continues to reel in, commit after commit after commit, and Oregon was able to get the tight end, Brame on Saturday. Thought Tennessee was in a really, really good position there, but ultimately it's recruiting. Things can change by the minute, and that was going to be a really, really good weekend. In fact, when I was kind of show prepping over the weekend and thinking about how I was going to lay out Monday's show, I had already kind of penciled in Deshaun Brame, going to talk about him being a Tennessee commit from Saturday, but ultimately that did not happen. It went to Oregon. But, Maryion Dye went ahead and committed to Tennessee on Friday. He's been a long-time Tennessee commit. A really, really good player. He's an edge player, 6'4", we'll call it 6'5", we'll round up, about 265, 270. He is from Indiana, where he attends Elkhart Central High School, and he chose Tennessee over Ohio State and Purdue. And again, Tennessee's been recruiting him for quite some time. He has been a priority for Rodney Gardner and Coach Chop, if you will. And he becomes, I believe, the 3rd highest ranked commit for Tennessee in the class of 2025. According to the On3 industry rankings, which again takes into account On3, 247, ESPN, Rivals.com, On3, 247 Sports are weighted the heaviest. Rivals is weighted the second heaviest, and then ESPN's weighted like 10% because, again, they don't give any efforts, the worldwide leader, into recruiting, so I don't even know why they cover recruiting anymore because they give no effort. But, again, you guys know the rule here. I will always slam ESPN recruiting when I have the opportunity because it's just pitiful. But nonetheless, according to the On3 industry rankings, Maryion Dye comes in as the 123rd ranked prospect in the country, the 18th edge, and the 3rd player from the state of Indiana. On3 has him really, really high. They consider Maryion Dye to be the 40th ranked prospect in the country, the 5th edge, and the #1 player out of Indiana. That's On3's specific rankings. Rivals.com actually has him ranked 103rd in the nation, whereas 247 and ESPN don't have him ranked overall, meaning he doesn't fall into the top, 200 or whatever. But again, as I say every single time, all these all these sites, recruiting sites, will update their rankings as the year goes on. But On3's been all over Maryion Dye. I believe he's a really, really good player. Again, 40th in the nation, 5th in the position, and #1 out of his state. 6'4", Again, we'll call it 6'5", 270 pounds. and he just continues to, add to this list of Tennessee on the defensive line. Tennessee's done a great job in the trenches here the last couple of weeks, as I've mentioned. He becomes the third highest ranked commit for Tennessee in the class, and here lately, some of these new guys of the class are highly rated prospects. Of course, you got George McIntyre continuing to lead the way, 5-star quarterback there as the top-rated recruit in the class. Douglas Utu, the interior offensive lineman who committed last week, he's the second highest rated prospect in the class. And then now it's Maryion Dye, the 4-star. Again, according to the industry rankings, 123rd in the country. He has a rating of 92.58 over on the On3 industry rankings. He is the third highest prospect in the class signed or committed to the University of Tennessee right now. But you just go up and look at some of these recent commits for Tennessee in the last couple of weeks. Again, when Dye committed, it was the third commit in 6 days for Tennessee, joining Douglas Utu, joining Trey Petit. Yeah, Trey Petit, the cornerback, also committed when I was on my way back from Omaha. So the third commit in the span of 6 days for Tennessee. But really the line of scrimmage is starting to beef up, no pun intended, and starting to look really, really good in this class. Douglas Utu, offensive lineman interior. Maryion Dye, edge, really, probably a strong side defensive end that will probably slide down and be a defensive tackle. I'll get into more on him in a moment, Tennessee's newest commit. But as Charles Power and some of these other guys will say, he's got the athleticism to be an edge player, but he's already 270, so he's going to make a really, really nice interior prospect. But, Maryion Dye just committed to Tennessee, defensive lineman. Here lately, you got Nick Moore, offensive lineman from Jefferson County, the 4-star. Jaden Lofton, 4-star, again, another defensive end edge player who committed to Tennessee about 10 days ago, or whatnot. Trey Petit last week, as we mentioned. Charles House, about, we'll call it 8-9 days ago, 3-star defensive tackle commit for Tennessee. All those guys here recently in the span of about 2 weeks, and Tennessee's doing a really, really nice job. You look at where Tennessee is now in terms of the national rankings. Again, 16 commits is kind of where they're at right now. Those big fish that would be, big-time movers for Tennessee. Brame would have been one of those. Of course, he goes to Oregon. He announces his commitment to Oregon on Saturday. David Sanders is still very much in this conversation. Bryce Donovan Jenkins kind of feels like that's not necessarily Tennessee anymore, but Tennessee's still in on him for the defensive line. But nonetheless, Tennessee has 16 commits, ranked 12th in the country, 7th in the SEC, and it's I really, really do like this class so far and kind of the makings of it. And with Brame committing to Oregon, Tennessee would probably still like to add another tight end because they shifted Emmanuel Okoye over to the defensive line. So numbers-wise, I think coming into this cycle, they were just fine with Jack Van Dorselaer being the lone tight end in the class, but I do think they want to add another tight end now. Brame's gone elsewhere, so where does Tennessee turn, if any, for another tight end in this class? We'll certainly have to see. But more on Maryion Dye, 4-star edge rusher, highly rated prospect for Coach Chop, for Rodney Gardner. This is what Charles Powers, Charles House is a Tennessee commit. This is what Charles Power had to say over VolQuest.com's Impact Analysis, written by Matt Ray. Of course, Charles Powers is the On3 Director of Scouting and Rankings. And quick reminder, Charles Power was the only one that had James Pierce as a 5-star coming out of high school. And look where he is now. Really, really good talent evaluator. This is what he has to say. Quote, Dye is one of the most physically gifted prospects in general in the class of 2025. I think when you look at his dimensions, and we had the opportunity to measure him at the On3 Elite Series last month, he is unique. He has a unique physical talent. He's around 6'5", close to 270 pounds, 35.5-inch arms, 7'1" wingspan. And at that size, he moves really well. You watch him run around on the field on Friday nights, he moves like a much smaller prospect. His pure physical tools immediately give him a ton to work with. He's going to have the size of an interior defensive lineman, but the athleticism of an edge player. I think he gives Tennessee a big-time talent to work with. He goes on to say, this is Charles Power on Maryion Dye. I think the biggest thing with him is going to continue to maintain improvements on Friday nights. There's no doubt he's one of the bigger freaks in the 2025 class. It gives Tennessee another top talent on the edge. I think that's a position they have recruited really well under Josh Heupel, dating back to James Pierce a couple of classes ago. No duh, Tennessee's recruited really well at the edge. We have seen that manifest in the field in Knoxville. They've continued that trend of getting these high upside, physically talented edge players, and Dye only continues that. He's a guy who in terms of physical skills is a complete no-brainer. He's a huge pickup for Tennessee. That was Charles Power, of course, the director of scouting and rankings over at On3. This is what Steve Wilfong had to say. Of course, he's with On3 now, National College Football Recruiting Analyst. He says, quote, Tennessee lands one of the more physically gifted defensive line prospects in the country. An absolute specimen and very athletic. He's raw right now, but has the traits to be special if it all comes together. Tremendous size, length, quickness. He is how you draw it up from that standpoint. So there's a common theme right here. Sure, he's raw, and he's got to develop and all that. All prospects do. But freak, specimen, athletic, plays like a smaller prospect, runs like a smaller prospect. That's great to hear when you want to bump him down into the interior, or Tennessee's going to have versatility. He can play that strong side defensive end, maybe stand up in a two-point stance and rush off the edge like a Leo, bump inside a defensive tackle, maybe bump inside on pass rushing situations. Down the line, this is a really, really nice pickup for Tennessee, Mariyon Dye. So Tennessee just continues its strong surge, and you're seeing these prospects of higher quality in terms of ranking just continue to commit to Tennessee. And I think that speaks volumes of kind of where student athletes, prospects, recruits see this program trending under Josh Heupel. I think Glenn Ellerby, I think Rodney Gardner, I think those guys have done an excellent job casting the wide net in this cycle. And you're not going to get them all, but you're coming up, feeling pretty good about the ones you do get. So Mariyon Dye, a longtime priority commit, just the latest to jump in the boat for the University of Tennessee. All right, when we come back, take a look at the top 5 from the Big 3. What's that mean? It's an article over at VolQuest.com. I'm going to react to it and change a little bit of it. That's coming up next as we continue on here with your Monday edition of Locked On Vols. I love sports. I love them so much, I never want to stop. But as the playoffs wind down, we get fewer and fewer games, and the sports, well, they're not sporting like I want them to. But over at FanDuel lets me keep the sports going whenever I want. All I have to do is open the app, dream up bets anytime I'm in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right, there's something for everyone every day, all summer long. So head on over to FanDuel.com/lockedon and start making the most out of your summer. Again, it's not just new customers, it's every customer, all customers, a boost or a bonus daily over at FanDuel Sportsbook. FanDuel.com/lockedon to start making the most out of your summer. FanDuel, it's the official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. All right, welcome back in your Monday edition of Locked On Vols. Appreciate you guys for being here. Don't forget your mailbag edition of the show. That is coming up tomorrow. So any questions, any comments, any concerns, any questions you want to ask me about whatever. It doesn't have to just be about Tennessee football, basketball, baseball, recruiting, transfer portal. Send them in at _Kane or at Locked On Vols and Locked On Vols on the YouTube channel. Okay, so Brent Hubbs wrote a story over at VolQuest.com Sunday afternoon. The top 5 games for Tennessee's Big 3. Tennessee's Big 3 consisting of Josh Heupel's football team, Rick Barnes' basketball team, and Tony Vitello's baseball team. And I thought it was pretty interesting going through the top 5 games essentially of the year. And, every 4th of July week in the, middle of summer, we have to, we got some nice little topics, and I'll bring them over here to the podcast as well. But, around fireworks, around, 4th of July, explosions, stuff like that, explosive players, explosive games, explosive plays, firework moments. We're going to do a bunch of that stuff over at VolQuest.com, looking back at this past year. And I mean, goodness gracious, if you're a Tennessee fan, if you're like me covering Tennessee sports and talking for a living about Tennessee sports, just so much to choose from. I mean, it's about as good as it gets, right? I mean, sure, you want to win national titles and national titles on national titles. I get that. But hey, you just got a natty in baseball, which is awesome. I mean, Knoxville would burn in celebration if Tennessee football ever got a national championship again, and we'll see if that happens in the coming years. Tennessee basketball went back to its second ever Elite Eight. Dalton Knecht is nothing but a true legend, Tennessee legend in his 1 year here at Tennessee, and showing how the transfer portal can be used as just a great benefit. Sure, it's rent a player. Okay, I recognize that a lot of the times. Billy Amick was a rent a player this year for Tennessee baseball. But you have Dalton Knecht that started in junior college, that went to a Division I program that nobody ever watched, He was a second-team all-conference player this past year for Northern Colorado. Nobody cared to watch, right? Comes to Tennessee, and he turns himself into, albeit, he slid in the first round, but turned himself into a first-round draft pick to the Los Angeles Lakers. A guy knew Los Angeles Lakers coach J.J. Redick. Shout out J.J. He was the J.J. back in the day when you're like Kobe, LeBron. It was like J.J. He was that dude. When I was little in terms of shooting guard in college basketball. I know a lot of people hate him, but J.J. Redick's already drawing up plays for Dalton Knecht. LeBron James is talking about how excited he is to play with Dalton Knecht. So I think it worked out well for Dalton, but no doubt about it, with the NBA draft last week, you're sitting there and you're just like, I cannot believe Dalton Knecht's not been drafted yet. I cannot believe Dalton Knecht's not been drafted yet. But everything happens for a reason, and I think that he's wound up in a great, great spot. I really, really do. Showtime Lakers, Knecht 4. He'll be wearing the number 4 jersey for the Lakers this year. But nonetheless, you have so many different games to choose from basketball. Which performance from Dalton Knecht was great? Which win for Tennessee basketball meant the most? Of course, Tennessee won a college baseball World Series championship this year. Which wins meant the most? Football, 8-4, got the big Citrus Bowl win, finished 9-4. I mean, yeah, there's not as many to choose from, but Brent Hubbs goes through and does a really, really good job, and in no particular order, he just kind of lists the ones that, meant the most, and the first one he mentions was obviously the national championship game, Game 3 of the College World Series Finals against Texas A&M, and now Tennessee held on to win 6-5 up until the last out when Aaron Combs is sitting there laughing because he balks over a guy and he scores on a wild pitch and tying runs at the plate, and he's just sitting there laughing just because he knows, I just need one more out and we're champions. All the way to the last out to Dylan Dryland's 2-run home run in the 7th inning, the third of the finals in the 7th inning of the 2-run variety. Hunter Ensley's slide that turned out to be the game-winning run when he was out by a mile. It looked like, but he found a way to score. Christian Moore, home run. I mean, there's so many. It's Xander Seacrest, what he did on the mound. I mean, there's so many things to choose from that last game, but nonetheless, it was the one that clinched a World Series championship. So that one should be at the top for sure. You going down and continuing to talk about the baseball run, and up until the Game 3 win over the Aggies to clinch a World Series championship, the best game in Tennessee baseball history was the win over Florida State to begin its College World Series journey. All the way back on June the 14th. I mean, today is July the 1st. June the 14th was the first game in Omaha for Tennessee in the College World Series, and my goodness, it feels like it was just yesterday, but it was forever ago. And Tennessee fell down early, but just kept chipping away, and it was ultimately Dylan Dryling that walked it off with a single there in the bottom of the 9th inning, as Tennessee wins an improbable win. I tried to say improbably. An improbable win, 12-1, where Tennessee scored 4 in the 9th, 3 runs coming with 2 outs in the 9th inning. Christian Moore hits for a cycle in that game. We've talked about it so much, but it's like what legends are made of. Nate Snead, nobody could pitch for Tennessee that night. But Nate Snead came on and settled the waters, kind of said, I'm here, relax, I'm going to pitch, I'm going to put up some zeros, offense get to work. And I think, nobody talks about how great Nate Snead was in that ball game, but he deserves the game ball, in my opinion. Now, Christian Moore probably does. He hit for the cycle, only the second cycle ever in College World Series history. But yeah, prior to the win over A&M in Game 3 of the College World Series that wrapped up the national championship, that was the best game ever in Tennessee baseball history. So that absolutely deserves to be on the list. Hubbs goes on and he brings down the win over Auburn there towards the end of the season when Dalton Knecht went off again. Knecht scored, 39 points? That was like the 4th or 5th time he scored 39 points on the season. He scored 11 straight points in that point in time. He rattled off, Tennessee went on an insane run there towards the end of the game where Dalton Knecht scored 25 of the Vols' 30 points over a 9-minute span in a stretch of offensive basketball that rivals, individually, no one in the country. That was incredible. And that streak, that run was improbable for Dalton Knecht in Tennessee, and it picked up another huge win for Tennessee in that stretch, that dominant stretch there to end the regular season. But if we remember the stretch that Tennessee went on to end the regular season, it started with a home game against Texas A&M. And remember, A&M upset Tennessee in College Station just a couple weeks before. Tennessee got that win. Tennessee played against Auburn at home, won 92-84. That was huge. That was on the 28th of February. Tennessee went on the road, won at Alabama to sweep Alabama in the season series. And remember, Alabama went on to play in the Final Four. That was a huge win. Going back on the road to South Carolina, winning against the Gamecocks, and just a great season that they had. And then ending the regular season at home. Sure, you lost it to Kentucky, but just kind of ran out of gas there in that that 4-game swing to end the regular season, which was just incredible. 1, 2, 3, 5-game swing there to end the regular season. Kind of ran out of gas there towards the end, but Tennessee was still in a really, really good spot to enter the SEC tournament, of course, where it was one and done, so I don't think that it really mattered whatsoever. But you go to the NCAA tournament, you get the win over St. Peter's, cool. You get the win over Texas, cool. You get the win over Creighton. And that's another one of those games that we're going to talk about. And actually, Brent Hubbs mentions this one. Get the win over Creighton to send Tennessee back to only its second Elite Eight appearance ever in Tennessee history. And, Knecht had 26 points. Zakai Ziegler, though, Josiah Jordan-James, 18 points, 15 points respectively. That kind of felt like a business as usual game for me. I mean, sure, don't get me wrong. Tennessee, they had to Tennessee went on a run there to end the first half. 8 in the second half, erasing a 1-point deficit. They finished the first half strong. 90 seconds to go in the first half, Cam Carr hit a really, really awesome 3-pointer that nobody really ever talks about, but just kind of adds fuel to the fire that he's going to be really good. But for the most part, I thought Tennessee kind of controlled that game. But it was a huge game because it got Tennessee back in the Elite Eight for only the second time ever. Knecht goes off, and you get another one of those appearances from Zakai Ziegler. And, oh, yeah, Josiah Jordan-James at Kentucky was phenomenal. Zakai Ziegler at Kentucky earlier this season was phenomenal. But I guess if I was going to replace any of the basketball moments, I might replace this game against Creighton. But then when you look at it on the other end, it's like, okay, well, that win put Tennessee back in the Elite Eight for only the second time ever. So it's kind of hard to argue there. I would 100% have the win over Auburn in there because that stretch to end the game, which was just incredible. And then if you won the Purdue game, then the Purdue win would certainly go there for sure because that would have punched Tennessee's ticket to its first ever Final Four. The last game Brent Hubbs highlights on this, and a football season that didn't have a whole lot of moments, to be completely honest with you. It's the Citrus Bowl win. And why not? 35-0. It was a glimpse of what Tennessee's going to be in 2024. Why? Well, because you had Nico Iamaleava starting. You had Dylan Sampson and Kim Selton in the backfield. You did not have Tyler Barron playing on the defensive line. You did not have a bunch of these guys who were opting out. They did not play in this game. You got a glimpse of what Tennessee's roster is going to look like in 2024. And, you go against an Iowa defense that was ranked like second or third nationally, allowed only 4 rushing touchdowns all season long, and Nico torches them for 3 rushing touchdowns on the ground. And he doesn't have to throw an awful lot, but he throws 12 and 19, $151 and a touchdown. Nico looked really, really good. So when you're looking at this football schedule, if you were to put a football game on this schedule or in this top 5, moments here, I mean, that's probably the only one that you're going to do. I mean, Texas A&M was a great win, but you had a really ugly offensive performance, but special teams and defense stepped up in a big way. If you finish the job at Alabama, that game goes on there because you're in Tuscaloosa. The win on the road to Kentucky was huge, but again, Kentucky's not, hanging any banners there. Missouri was a disaster. Georgia was not great. I mean, the only one that you could put in a list like this was the Citrus Bowl win from this year. I mean, it's really the only game that would make sense. So a lot of basketball moments, a ton of football moments. Again, if I was going to switch out any of those, basketball-wise, maybe the win at Kentucky, maybe the win at Alabama because of what Alabama turned into being down the stretch in the tournament. But I'm fine with kind of the ones that he listed there, and of course it being the Auburn win towards the end of the regular season and the win over Creighton. Baseball, it's easy last year to point to the games, and it's like game 1 against Vanderbilt, 2 solo home runs in the 9th inning from Dylan Dreiling and Kavaris Tears. Griffin Merritt walks it off in the 10th inning, extra innings to win it, and that turned the season around for sure. Like, it's easy to point to that moment and say that's when it all changed for Tennessee in 2023. They were 5-10 in SEC play, but went on and finished like 15-5 and, went to the College World Series. Of course, that was 2023. It's easy to point to that moment. This year, Tennessee would just wire to wire was just good. So there wasn't necessarily a turning point. So the games obviously come in the College World Series, the walk-off win against FSU and the win against Texas A&M, the win it all. So anyway, fun conversation to have. Really, really fun conversation to have, especially in the baseball and basketball side of things because there's so many more to choose from. But what about explosive players? What about explosive plays from this year? Individual moments. We'll have more on that as the week continues over at VolQuest.com, and of course I'll bring it over here to Locked On Vols as well. Hey, when we come back, where does Neyland Stadium ranked in the updated home field advantages according to CBS Sports with college football expansion, conference expansion? That's coming up next. We continue on here with a Monday Locked On Vols. Today is July the 1st. Today is the official start day, unless I've got something wrong up here, and I'm pointing to my head, and that happens a lot of times. But it's when the fiscal year changes over, NCAA conference stuff. It's when things go in, like for the academic year, quote unquote, we are no longer dealing with the 2023-2024 academic year. Starting today, we're officially dealing with the 2024-2025 academic year. We are talking about this year being the 2024 football season, 24-25 basketball season, 25 baseball season. And with the start of the new academic year, you bring in the conference's new teams, conference's new programs. The SEC expands from 14 to 16 teams officially today. You add in Texas, the Longhorns. You add in Oklahoma. Talked a lot about EA Sports. This is completely off topic. But talked a lot about EA Sports last week and how they left out Tennessee in the top 25 overall, top 25 offenses, and top 25 defenses. Whether it was an oversight, whether it was a troll, whether it was engagement farming. You got your wish because we talked about it here on the show, and there were plenty of other people that talked about it as well. But also the fact that EA Sports is not going to have horns down in the video game. Soft. So soft. You're coming to the SEC, okay? And these fans from Texas get upset when other fan bases do horns down. Buckle up. You're coming to big boy football week in and week out right now. There are no off days, all right? You're going to get horns down all over the place because it upsets you. And the fact that EA Sports doesn't have horns down in the video game, pathetic. Anyway, let's get back to the topic at hand here to end the Monday show. CBS Sports came out and did stadium rankings. Newcomers, Oklahoma, Texas, lag behind legacy league members after conference expansion. That makes a whole lot of sense. According to the 1 through 16 rankings of the football stadiums, new members, Oklahoma and Texas, come in consecutively at 9 and 10. 9, this is talking about Oklahoma. Quote, this is from David Cobb over at CBS Sports, a Tennessee guy, by the way. If there was a 2023 and we were ranking the best Big 12 stadiums, the Palace on the Prairie would likely sit at number 1. But the Sooner faithful will have to prove that OU's home field advantage is better than that of the SEC legacy programs. Visits from Tennessee and Alabama in 2024 will give the Sooners a chance to set the record straight. So Oklahoma comes in at number 9 in these rankings. Texas comes in at number 10. This is what Cobb says about Texas. Quote, Texas went 6-0 at home in 2023, but the marquee visitors were Kansas and Kansas State. The Longhorns were a middling 9-4 at Darrell K. Royal Memorial Stadium over 2021 and 2022 seasons. A visit from Georgia on October 19th of this year will give the eyes of Texas an opportunity to flex on the SEC and show that DKR belongs in the conversation as a premier SEC environment. I have no issues about that. They're brand new to the SEC. Great football environments, don't get me wrong, but these two newcomers rank in front of the Mississippi States that nobody's going to be, talking about cowbell being the biggest, one of the biggest home field advantages in the SEC. Comes in front of Arkansas, which is good for Tennessee because Tennessee goes on the road to Arkansas this year. Comes in front of Ole Miss. Comes in front of Missouri. Tennessee got its butt whipped at Missouri last year, and it actually Cobb brings up a really, really good point. Since joining the SEC in 2012, Missouri has made strides to get Memorial Stadium on par with other SEC venues. If the Tigers pulled off the upset against number 1 Georgia in 2022, perhaps the venue would rank higher on the list. Alas, they fell 26-22, nearly missed out on a monumental home victory. Well, They did get a really, really good victory last year, spanking Tennessee, of course. We don't have to spend a lot of time on it, but I think that final score was, 30-7, 35-7? I don't know. I was there. I will say this about Missouri. Two different ball games. They get that Tennessee boat race in 2021, Missouri boat race Tennessee in 2023. The environment when I was there in 2021 was horrendous. The environment this past football season was much, much better. The stadium looked cleaner, too. I'm not saying it's there. It's certainly not. It's certainly not on par with everything else. But I do think Missouri's made significant gains in that regard. Anyway, Missouri's at 14. Kentucky's at 15. Vanderbilt is at 16. This is a funny little tidbit here on Kentucky. Any program that sells the naming rights of its football stadium to a grocery store chain is punting in this competition. I thought that was funny. Okay, where does Tennessee rank? Well, Tennessee comes in at number 4. Neyland Stadium ranked only 7th among SEC venues in EA Sports' list of toughest places to play. Underestimate the orange insanity at your own peril. Former Oklahoma star quarterback Baker Mayfield once called Neyland Stadium a different type of loud and said it was probably the best game experience I've ever had. Mayfield's not the only one that said that. I mean, think about all these other players throughout the last couple seasons who have said similar remarks. Tate Rull, is that his name? The offensive lineman from Georgia. He was on some podcast here in the last couple of months and said outside of Georgia that Tennessee's got the best football atmosphere in the SEC. I mean, there's been a whole lot of similar comments, and I wish Tennessee's press box was open air because I look at my water bottle and it's like rattling, and the water looks like it's ocean water sometimes because of the vibrations and everything and how crazy Neyland gets. But I don't get to hear it. I will say this: Georgia, that comes down at number 6, it had an open air press box for the longest time. In fact, the last game in that open air press box of this past football season, 2022, Tennessee at Georgia, I think it was one of the only games that stadium really got up for the last couple of years. Because think about it. I mean, you've been one of the best in the country, right? And there's not many times you got to really get up and get animated for your team to kind of give them a boost. Tennessee 2022 was one of those games, and I couldn't hear myself think. Open air press box, it was tough. It was so loud. But Georgia comes in here at number 6. Tennessee's at number 4. Sandwiched in between them is Auburn at number 5. Florida's at number 3. It's a nightmare for some teams, including Tennessee, playing at Ben Hill Griffin Stadium. And we'll see if that can change, not this year for Tennessee, but of course next year, you would think. Of course, nothing about the schedule's final. Tennessee, there was no reason to lose to Florida last year. No reason, but still Tennessee lost what was it? 21. I forgot the final score, but I mean, it was Tennessee lost to a bad Florida team last year, but it was on the road. We've seen many circumstances where the home team wins in this series a lot of the times over the last decade. Alabama's at number 2, and I got to say, I don't really think there's much of a home field advantage for Alabama. I've been there a couple of times. They've got really good teams. Have had really good teams, but, I mean, the roll tide every 10 seconds, I think there's much better venues. LSU's number 1. And look at this as we end our show. LSU is 11-0 in home games through 2 seasons under Brian Kelly, at home night games under 2 seasons under Brian Kelly. Its only home loss of the Kelly era came at an 11 a.m. local start time against Tennessee in 2022. I was there. They whipped their tail. Tennessee got off the bus with a 14-0 lead. Just whipped their tail. And I was kind of like, granted, I know it was 11 a.m. local time, and they didn't have all day to drink on the bayou down there to get ready for a 7 or 8 o'clock kickoff. But I was like, this is it, right? I mean, like, the crowd was never a factor, and Tennessee's winning so bad at halftime, a lot of the crowd went home at halftime, and Tennessee fans took over that stadium. But alas, LSU comes in there at number 1. So anyway, I thought this was interesting. I think Alabama's ranked too high. I think Tennessee and Florida are ranked appropriately. I think Tennessee should be in the top 4, number 3 or number 4 for sure. LSU should be up there. I think in some combination, LSU, Florida, Tennessee should be the top 3. But it's LSU, Alabama, Florida, Tennessee. Auburn's at 5. Georgia's at 6. South Carolina sneaks in there at number 7. Texas A&M is at number 8. Oklahoma's at 9. Texas at 10. Of course, we already went through the back half of the rankings. What do you think? Where does Tennessee's Neyland Stadium come in terms of home field advantage? We'd love to hear from you. Make it part of your X Tuesday @_Caner at Locked On Vols. We will answer your questions. We'll talk about whatever you want to talk about on tomorrow's show. Mailbag edition of the show @_Caner at Locked On Vols. And of course, you can ask your question by leaving a YouTube comment as well. Appreciate you guys as always. Thanks so much for being here. Let's do it again tomorrow. Subscribe to us for free wherever you get your podcasts and download the episodes. This is Locked On Vols.